Don't fool yourself into believing you need to spend 5 minutes talking to a patient before you sit them back. And trust me, your patients will appreciate it, your team members will appreciate it, and your soul will still be nourished. The relationships will still be there. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Glenn Krieger here with another edition of your 5-Minute Friday. I want to bring something up to you. I was at GORP this past weekend, and it was great. Got to meet hundreds of residents. And so for those of you I met out there, it was wonderful. Don't worry, it's a great profession. You're going into a great industry. Don't let school get you down or get you too excited. It's going to be amazing. Always reach out to me with any questions you have. But one thing we did talk about, and this applies to everybody, is one of the most common mistakes and misconceptions I see among younger orthodontists, younger dentists, younger clinicians, is this feeling like they need to spend more time with patients to create some form of legitimacy. Now, mind you, when I got out of dental school, I was barely 24 years old. I looked young, and I every day had patients ask, "How old are you?" And I felt like I had this need to have to connect and connect and connect. And I just want to caution everybody out there. Number one, we all know that if you've trained your treatment coordinator properly, if you've done a good job, then at new patient exams, the less time you spend in that room, the higher your case acceptance is going to be. We know that. That's not even a question. For those of you out there who feel my patients start because of me, I have a news flash. They don't. If you run your practice properly, your TC is the center of everything. Now, there are doctors I know who I respect the heck out of who present their own care and don't have a TC, and that's good for them. But generally speaking, you want to come in the room, you want to do a great exam, and let's be honest, how long does a great exam really take? You want to present your findings so that they're documented. You want to do a diagnosis, and then you want to present your treatment options. You don't need to get into 25 minutes of explaining to people why they need their class 2 end-on corrected to a class 1. They don't care, most of them. Now, obviously, People Styles at Work, great book, written many years ago, talks about all the different styles of people that are out there, and your engineering types are going to ask you a million questions. However, that doesn't mean you have to stay in there for 20 or 30 minutes. But now let's go to your regular appointments. You don't need to sit down with a patient and talk to them for 10 minutes. Now, if that's how you get your happiness and your fulfillment, then God bless you. And if your practice is slow enough to where you can spend 10 minutes with a patient, God bless you again. That's a wonderful thing. That's not my practice, and that's not the practice I want to have. I love my patients. I want to help them get the smile they deserve. I'm even friends with a number of them. However, it's my job. We've talked about this many times before. My deepest fulfillment comes from the relationships I have outside my office. I love my patients. I love spending time with them. But let's not fool ourselves into believing that I'm going to become best friends with every one of my patients. Doesn't mean I can't care for them. Doesn't mean I can't love on them. And I want to teach you a little secret that I learned years ago, right? 31 years in practice. You learn a few things along the way. I've demonstrated at GORP to a number of residents how I can connect and make a patient feel loved on in 30 seconds. And that's not fake, and it's not manipulation. But if I come from behind the patient, because my patients are always upright, if my assistant is waiting for me, I always have them seat the patient up, even if it's for 10 seconds. People don't want to lay flat unless they're asleep, and that's very few people. And for most of my adults, which is the majority of my practice are adults, I want them seated upright like a human being with their dignity. And when I walk up to them, I stand in front of them, I look them in the eye, and I say, "Hey, John, how are you doing? How's life?" And I stare them square in the eye with love in my eyes and a relaxed demeanor and just say, "Hey, how's life? How you been?" And they say, "Great." Now, ordinarily, a younger doc or a newer doc or some doctors will now dive into that. "Hey, did you watch the game last night? Oh, crazy weather we're having. Oh my gosh, did you see that show?" Not me. I love them. They're there to get a service and they want to go home. They don't want to stay there a second longer than they have to. And don't try to tell me that they're sitting there because they come because you're the best part of their day. In some cases, you will be. But for the overwhelming majority of patients, just like you, when you go to the doctor's appointment is not the best part of your day. I'm sorry. Now, there are dysfunctional relationships and dysfunctional households and people with lots of problems. And for that very rare minority, you will be the best part of their day. And we have to recognize that and lean into it a bit. But it doesn't have to come from you. It can come from your assistant as well. So you walk up to the patient, look them in the eye with all the love you have in your heart and say, "Hey, how's life? How are you doing?" And they say, "Great." Say, "Awesome." And so how are the teeth doing? Oh, everything's going great. Or my aligner feels weird or this. Great. Do you mind if I take a look? Not at all, doc. I sit him back. I always ask permission, by the way. I learned that from Michael Schuster from the Schuster Center. Always ask permission before you do anything. Hey, mind if I sit you back? Right? It's courtesy. I sit them back. I take a look. I sit them up and tell them what's going on, and I move. Or I don't sit them up. I look them in the eye and I tell my assistant who jumps in and takes over the appointment. Legitimately, if I spend more than 1 minute talking to a patient, it's a lot. But if you ask any of my team members, they will tell you that my team feels my patients feel loved on, respected, and cared for. And if they need more time, I will give it to them. But the overwhelming majority of my patients don't need more time. And if a mom is sitting there in the chair while the patient's sitting back and I'm putting my gloves on, I'll talk to mom. Hey, how are you doing? How's everything? Getting ready for school? Right? I can spend 30 seconds to a minute there with them as I put my gloves on. But again, I'm not wasting 1 second of time getting into small talk because I can do that. If I'm bending a wire, I can talk about small talk, right? I can do two things at once. But my conversation is to let them know I'm there. I'm asking them if they have objections or problems. I'm there to listen. And nonverbal cues, a touch on the shoulder, a laugh, the way you say things, it comes with experience. But don't fool yourself into believing you need to spend 5 minutes talking to a patient before you sit them back. And trust me, your patients will appreciate it. Your team members will appreciate it. And your soul will still be nourished. The relationships will still be there. Because, patients who want to talk to you, you'll talk to them. But again, remember, just like for yourself, more than likely, unless you're going for a massage, this appointment you're going to is not the best part of your day. Now, again, you might have parents with tons of questions. But again, I try to let my assistant run the appointment so they answer most questions before I even get to the chair. Or, hey, let's ask the doctor when he gets here. And they'll lead me right into the question. But again, I walk from behind. I sit down in front of the patient, eye to eye, knee to knee, look them square in the eye and say, so how have you been? Just like that, how have you been? And if I do that with any of you out there, you'll feel loved, you'll feel appreciated, you'll feel cared for. And then after I'm done doing that, great. And how are the teeth doing? How's the smile coming along? They'll talk, great. Then I look at my assistant before I sit him back. So what are we doing today? Let my assistant give me an update. Mind if I take a peek? Not at all, doc. Sit him back, take a look. Here's what we're doing. Here's where we're going. I'm going to let Susie take over. Sound good? They go, great. Awesome. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always here for you. Have a great day. Legitimately, you can spend 2.5 minutes at most. And again, don't be fooled into the narrative. If people have fooled themselves into believing they need to spend 5 or 10 minutes, or that gives them fulfillment, good for them. But the average practice, seeing 50 or more patients a day, and that's being a low number for most practices today, but 50 or more patients a day, you can't spend 5 to 10 minutes per patient. You can, like some doctors I know, and their teams will revolt, and you'll lose team members, and your culture will go to pot. But again, give that a try next time. Do what I just said. See how it works for you. And I hope to see you at Orthopreneurs Summit. Really looking forward to you. We're going to close registration at some point soon if it hasn't already been closed by the time this podcast drops. It's going to be amazing. I'm creating a meeting to help you lead your most profitable, low stress, amazing life. You want to spend more time with your family? You want to spend more time doing things you want to do? You want to make more money while doing that? This is the meeting for you. And my conversation on AI, I guarantee you, is going to save you 3 to 4 weeks of time per year just by being able to delegate things to AI. So wishing you much love. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'm always here. Go to opsummit2023.com and sign up there. Take care. We've got several stressors in our life. We've got a great profession, but we've got to deal with overhead. We've got to deal with productivity. We got to deal with team members that are outside of our control sometimes. And the great news is all of these issues are addressed in depth in this year's curriculum at Orthopreneurs Summit. So please go to opsummit2023.com, sign up for the meeting that's almost sold out, that everybody's going to be talking about, that you really need to be at to be your best practice with the lowest stress and highest profitability. opsummit2023.com. Please join me there so that I can take care of you even better than you take care of your patients.